Hey guys, it's Husklax again. Today I'm going to be bringing you guys a new video, it's the first one in a long time, I know. But basically I just kind of wanted to provide a little bit of an update on my sort of Demise and Ruin deck. I saw, some of the comments that you guys had sort of like put on some of my, on my last video on this deck. And so I just kind of wanted to give you guys an update. It's been quite some time. Obviously, we're in August now, so we're 8 months into the year, and I went to regionals last in sort of like October. So it's been quite some time, around 9 months now, and yeah. So I just wanted to give you guys sort of an update, given some of the new cards that we've basically been given, and there really honestly aren't too terribly many changes, and I'll go ahead and explain some of those changes right now. Well, a little bit later, but anyway, just to kind of give you a brief overview of sort of what we're playing. So again, we're still playing 3 Ruin, we're still playing 3 Demise Supreme Kings, we're still playing 3 Demise. We're playing one sort of the creator incantation card. This card's a little bit strange because you could go ahead and switch this out with any level 10 ritual monster. And the reasoning behind that is because this card by itself isn't really that important. What's important is the levels, right? So you have level 10 here, and what you want to do, and I'll explain this a little bit more later. But what you're going to be doing is you're going to be trading out essentially one of the level 10s to summon out the demise ruin. I'm sorry, ruin. So that's what you're going to be doing. I'll explain that a little bit later, but essentially this could be any level 10 that you want. Preferably, I was thinking about maybe doing Cyber Angel Varish, or the level 10 Cyber Angel Ritual Monster. I was thinking about doing her because she has a nice effect where if you play her, right, and she gets onto the field, she could go ahead and, I believe it's destroy the monsters, your opponent's monsters in the extra monster zone. I could be wrong on that, but I believe that's what her effect is. So I've been thinking about switching her out. What's important though isn't necessarily the effect, but more or less the what's it called, the levels, right? So you want the levels to be level 10, so that way it sort of matches up perfectly with the ritual requirements for ruin, right? Or well, for ruin, you don't want to get this guy on the field, you want to get her onto the field. So again, I'll explain that a little bit later, but that's basically what you're going to be doing. So this could be any level 10. Just for right now, we're using him. And it works really well because of the incantation ritual spell that we have. So we're playing 3 Manjus, we're playing 3 Talismandras, 3 Pensy Plumes, 3 Bookstones, and 3 Candles. So fairly self-explanatory with all of these. Playing 3 of everything, again, except for this level 10, just keeping it at 1 because we don't really want to see him unless we're trying to ritual summon Ruin. So that's why we don't really, we want to keep it at 1. But yeah, and before I go any further, I just want to preface that this is going to be a 40 plus card deck. This isn't going to be, 40 exactly. We are going to be going a little bit over. So we'll go ahead and continue with the spells. Okay, so these are going to be the spell cards we're playing. Really not too much different. The only real difference is are these cards right here, the Incantation Inceptions, and I'll explain that in a little bit. But again, 3 Allures of Darkness, 3 Pot of Desires, 2 Called by the Graves. These are really important. 3 End of the Wards. These are the best ritual card that we have in this deck, the best ritual card, and I'll explain that a little bit later. Cycle, Incantation Inception, and then pre-preparation of rites. Just always sort of, whatever ritual deck you're playing, this is going to be a pretty important card. Anyway, so let's see, we'll go ahead and begin. These should be fairly self-explanatory. I suppose we are playing over 40 cards, so you want to go ahead and sort of like search out as much as you can, not search, but sort of draw into as much as you can, given that this is a ritual deck and we sort of need pieces in order to sort of like make everything work. Now, talking about Allure of Darkness, it's probably better if you could go ahead and make this a dark level 10. Unfortunately, the Cyber Angel isn't a dark level 10, it's a light level 10, as well as this is. So it doesn't really work out too terribly well, but it's still a really important card, simply because of the fact you could end up getting multiple demises into your hand, so it's good to sort of banish one, then draw two. And again, it's really easy to search out demise, the original demise, if you have pre-preparation of rites. So that's kind of why it's there. Let's see, Called by the Grave is a very important card, obviously. Let's see. Okay, well, let's talk about the ritual spells. So the reason why this is the best ritual spell in this deck, I'll sort of explain a little bit more later, but essentially you're going to be using this to trade out level 10s in your hand. And so that's kind of why it's important. Maybe the word trading out isn't the best word to use, but essentially it's going to help you sort of, you have two level 10s in your hand, you have this card in your hand. If Ruin is one of those level 10s and the other level 10 is either Demise Supreme King or the Creator, you go ahead, you play this card, send one of those other level 10s to the graveyard, Ruin comes onto the field, Ruin gets her effect, and then you pretty much almost have the OTK right there. Cycle isn't too terribly great just because you already need to have cards that are in the sort of on the field in order to use it. So it's okay. It's not the best, but it's not the worst either. It's so. And then Incantation Inception again is one of those so cards. You might think, oh, it's a really great card. You could do a whole lot with it. Well, what's really important in this deck is that you're doing everything you can to make sure that you're using ritual monsters for the full tribute summon to get Ruin out onto the field, to make sure Ruin gets her full effects off in terms of her being able to go ahead and attack twice. And in order for you to do that, you need to use a ritual monster. And if you're using Incantation Inception, it only allows you to use incantation monsters, which means it's not necessarily the best card to go ahead and be using if you're going to want to head and ritual summon. Ruin. If you want to go ahead and get out, something like Demise, the smaller Demise, level 8 Demise, then it's fine, but it's not the best. And this honestly covers the original Demise, and so does this. And they both have some really nice sort of like recursion ability in terms of being in the graveyard and then you being able to kind of get them back and getting more materials. So they're nice. But this is an OTK deck, and I probably should have mentioned that before, but this is an OTK deck, and we got it to be an OTK deck because honestly, I'm not that bright. I'm a little bit stupid, and I didn't realize that this deck could OTK a little bit more consistently with a few tweaks, and I feel like the tweaks we've made now will allow this deck to OTK a little bit more consistently. And then this is pre-prep, obviously fairly self-explanatory, just helps you get out Demise and search Demise out. You can't really search anything else. Literally the only card that you could get with this card is Demise. That's the only card you could get, but it really is helpful because Demise is half of the OTK. So, and I'll show you guys the OTK right now. Okay, guys, so same as before, literally no changes. This is the field you want to sort of end up on, except now what we want to do is we want to focus on making sure that we have two level 10s in our hand to go ahead and get Ruin onto the field. And so what's going to happen is that ideally you have, again, like I said, two level 10s. So let's say, you have Ruin on your hand, right? You have this card in your hand and you have this card in your hand. The reason why this is the best ritual spell in this deck is because you could just literally play this, send this to the graveyard, get her out, and then boom, she has her effect where she could go ahead and attack twice. Demise is fairly easy to get out onto the field just because of all the incantation cards that we have. We have really good ways, because we have things like Talismandra, because we have things like pre-preparation of rites, and then we also have things like Manju, right? It's really easy for us to go ahead and get, find ways to basically get Demise, King of Armageddon onto the field. It's super easy, so we really don't have to worry about that. Our biggest concern is making sure that we have Ruin on the field with her ability to go ahead and attack twice, which means that we're going to have to tribute off, a ritual monster is going to have to be used to fulfill the entire tribute. Now, you could go over the tribute if you wanted to. Well, actually, you can't if you're using this. This has to be the exact number, so you have to do 10 if you're doing her, right? So you can't really go over, which is why this is, I mean, it's sort of limiting, but believe me, this is the best card. I mean, I'm serious, this is the best card or the best ritual card that we have access to. It's really good. You're literally just switching the two out. This goes to the graveyard, this goes onto the field. She has the ability to attack twice, right? And then we go ahead, we take Demise, move him out of here. Demise comes onto the field. Demise's effect, right? Basically pay 2,000 life points. You could do it 3 times, right? If you have 8,000 life points, you could do it 3 times. Blow up the field. Ruin protects herself. Ruin protects Demise as well from being destroyed by card effects, right? So they both stay on the field. Ruin's effect, where she gets to attack twice, attack twice of her, and then attack once, and then that's game, right? And this is actually pretty consistent. You could get it out relatively consistent. I know I just said pretty consistent, but it's not impossible, right? It can be done, right? Obviously, of course, there's going to be some times where it just simply can't be done, which is kind of okay with this deck because you have things like Demise Supreme King, where you could go a little bit longer into games, and you don't have to worry about sort of like having an OTK or bust sort of situation where if you don't OTK, that's it. No, if you don't OTK, there's still you're still going to be going into the next into some other turns and stuff, so you're not going to be completely out of it if you can't OTK, but believe me, you're going to be OTKing fairly consistently. I think with this deck, I've taken it to some of my local tournaments and I've done fairly well. I haven't won, right, but I've done fairly well. And again, this isn't a competitive deck necessarily, it's just sort of one of those ritual decks, and it's sort of OTK, and you're doing it for fun. I shouldn't say sort of OTK because it is OTK. That's what you're really going for. But yeah, and then in terms of the extra deck, there's really nothing in the extra deck that you would really need. The only thing in the extra deck that I would say probably put in for sure is a Gustav Max. There's rarely a situation where you're going to go ahead and get 2 level 10s onto the field in your first turn. Like I said, you want to be going for the OTK, and with this deck, the OTK is very much so possible. So that's where you want to be going for. You don't want to be going for putting 2 level 10s onto the field, putting 2 level 10s, going into something like a Gustav Max, and then just let me get a Gustav Max here, going into a Gustav Max, right, and then detaching or whatever, and then dealing 2,000 damage. That's not the way you sort of want to be going for the OTK. The way you want to be going for the OTK is with this, right? And again, this isn't once per turn, so you could go ahead and keep doing it as many times as you need to in order to get rid of your opponent's monsters, and then attack their life points directly for 29 twice, and then 24 once, right? And then that's game. That's over 8,000 damage, and that's game. So it's really consistent. It's really easy. I think it's surprisingly easy. You don't really need that much in your hand. I mean, as long as you have, a ritual spell in your hand, you have one of the incantation cards you could sort of go off of, right? It's really easy. And again, we have a lot of draw power in terms of, something like Pot of Desires and a Lore of Darkness, right? That could really help us out if we need it as well. And this Demise, go ahead and use it. Like if you need to use a Lore of Darkness, right? Don't be afraid to use this. I mean, this card honestly doesn't do anything in this deck. It legitimately doesn't do anything in this deck unless you're going past turn 2, right? So if you're going for the OTK, right, this card doesn't do anything for you other than basically being fodder for where is it, End of the Ward, right, or a Lore of Darkness. It literally doesn't do anything, right? So I mean, you have nothing to be afraid of, I think, right? If you're getting rid of this card, everything revolves around getting these 2 cards onto the field as fast as possible, right, in your second turn, and basically going for the OTK. So I hope that is helpful for you guys. I hope this is an enjoyable deck if you guys decide to put it together. I'm not the best Yu-Gi-Oh player, so, obviously, of course, if you guys want to make suggestions or comments on, ways for me to improve or ways to improve this deck or anything, please feel free. I'd very much so appreciate the feedback. Like I said, I'm not a competitive player or anything like that. I've only gone to, 1 regionals or whatever, and I play at my locals every now and then, and I do fairly well. I don't do great, but I do well enough, it makes me happy and stuff. So this isn't an overly competitive deck, but hopefully you guys can see sort of, how this works. And how everything sort of fits together, right? Like I said, just make sure that you have 2 level 10s in your hand, right? End of the Ward is also in your hand. You could go ahead and use it, right? Send this to the graveyard, get her out. She gets her effect to attack twice, get him out, right? And that's pretty much game. If you could clear your opponent's board and you have both these cards on the field, that's game. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope you guys really enjoyed it. Like I said, feel free to leave comments and feedback. I'd really appreciate any sort of constructive criticism on ways to improve. So if you guys could do anything like that, that'd be appreciated. So thanks for watching. Have a good day. See you guys around. Bye.